Hi everybody, this is Katie. Welcome to Chapter 3 Code with Me. We're going to learn how to code modules in Small Basic and also look at what they mean again. So, you've already watched the lecture video on Chapter 3. You're good to go. We are looking at the back of Chapter 3 and we're going to do an assignment out of here in this Code with Me. And then I think with the homework assignment, I'll make a very short video that will just guide you a little bit. I love this textbook, but one of the things that we need to do is to show you how to do these things in Small Basic, and that's not in the textbook. So I have a couple of other resources here and here and here that I will put in the Chapter 3 folder so that you can reference them, and we'll reference them in this video. So, to begin, in Blackboard, you should have downloaded the Code with Me submission file, and in there right now it's just blank. This is where we're going to copy things over to, so I just have a couple blank things here so far. So that's there. I want to talk first about, I mentioned at the end of that last video about the debugging exercises. I think these are important because it helps us to see how the modules go. So as a review, let's go through these real quick. Here's the textbook. This is page 120. So very quick, find the error in the following pseudocode. Declare real mileage. We make a call to get mileage. So remember, it then goes down here. It says enter your vehicle's mileage, input mileage, and then it ends. So it comes back, and then it says you've driven a total of so many miles. So what is the problem here? See what I can do with this add text. Well, maybe not. We'll just talk about it. Or how about this? Yeah, not snipping. Notepad or sticky notes. Make a little sticky over here. And you can move these over too. So I'm just going to explain real quick. Okay, the problem with question 1. This problem is related to local variables. So when get mileage, the method module tries to use the mileage variable, it won't be able to do that because it's local and we don't pass it down. You don't have to type anything right now. Just listen and try to solve along with me. So this is important because if we don't pass it down, remember when you looked at local variables, it can't access this. So that's the answer to number 1. An error will occur if a statement in one module tries to access a local variable that belongs to another module. Well, that's a problem. 2, find the error in the following pseudocode. Get calories. Okay, we go down here. We declare real calories. We input calories. We declare real calories. And then how many in the second food. So we're taking in 2 items, 2 food items, and we're putting them into the variable calories. Okay, so we are doing this all within one module. Hopefully it's clicking in your head. You can't have 2 variables with the same name with the same scope or in the same module. So they have the same scope, meaning the scope of their declaration is within that module, so it will cause a conflict. So you cannot have 2 variables with the same name in the same module because the compiler or the interpreter would not know which variable to use when a statement tries to access one of them. All variables that exist within the same scope must have unique names. So remember that as we're coding our programs. 3. Find the potential error in this pseudocode. I need to use my... Call square root 5. Okay, and the module, and then square root integer ref number set number to equal the value raised to the power 2, which is, and then display number. Okay, so what we're doing is calling down here, and we're passing 5 into the variable number. So normally, only variables may be passed by reference. So we're passing a number. If you attempt to pass a non-variable argument into a reference variable argument or parameter, an error will occur. So this in number 3, we can't pass a number into a reference variable. Remember, there's pass by value and pass by reference. So we can't pass a number into a reference variable, only a variable. I should say a reference variable parameter. Otherwise, you'll have an error. So let me read that again real quick. Normally, only variables may be passed by reference. If you attempt to pass a non-variable argument, in this case 5, into a reference variable parameter, an error will occur. So that is a problem with 3. And then lastly, before we code, raise power, let me just make sure I got this whole thing here. Yeah. Raise power 2 and then 1.5. So here's our module. 2 gets placed into the real value parameter because they're passed sequentially. Now up here in this one, notice this is a reference parameter list, meaning you're passing by reference. This, we don't have the keyword reference on number 4, so that's passed by value. Now, so that means this number can go in there. 2 can go into value. 1.5 can go into power. Ooh, wait, hold on. What's the problem with this? Data types. Real as a decimal. 2 into value would work because it doesn't have to be a decimal, but integer only stores whole numbers. So 1.5 is a real or a decimal variable and can't be passed into power. So that is a problem because this would have to be, power's data type would have to be real. So most languages require that the argument and the receiving parameter variable be of the same data type. If you try to pass an argument of one type into a parameter variable of another type, an error usually occurs. So that is the start of the debugging exercises. Now I'll just take this, and in your document, the first one, I'll leave this in here. I think for the final exam or exercises, if I can spell that, I think it's important to go through some of these things in the book. So I'm going to leave these answers right here, and then you'll go on to this next one. And I'll even write a note here. The following answers are from Chapter 3 video. No need to do anything else in this section. I want you to have those answers though, because I think it's important. Mind my spelling errors. Okay. Now you'll notice this is my answer file. You downloaded Chapter 3 Code with Me submission file. I did the same, and I saved it as my answer so that this is the file that I will submit if I were a student. Okay, 10 minutes and we haven't coded yet, but that was important stuff. Okay, let's programming exercises. I picked out 2. These are all pretty straightforward, but the math is what kind of gets people. So we're going to look at the number 9 together as our code with me, and then well, let's keep it a little bit more simple. Let's do number 10 as the code with me. And again, if you want to look at any solutions for any of these, you can just let me know. And we'll do a different program for the assignment, one that's not in the book, but one that we use in our other courses for CIS116, and I think it's a good program. But because it's not in the book, I will give you some additional help and make a short video on that too. So we're going to do this program. Now remember, the things that we learned in previous, they all still apply. We do input, we do calculations, we do output. But what we're doing different is that we are putting our inputs and our calculations and our outputs, or we're putting these processes in modules. So we can still look at this program the same way, where we need to follow those same steps, but then we need to determine how we're going to break it apart. So it's important to do your pseudocode as well. So let's do pseudocode for this program together. So it's question 10 on page 122. And you could do a pseudocode or flowchart. Let's do the pseudocode together, and then we'll do the actual code. Now, it's not wise to just start coding. What's wise is that we plan our program first. So plan and then code. So the code with me sample that we're going to do is the number 10 on page 122, and it is called I'm referencing my hard copy, the monthly sales tax program. Now I don't want to flip back and forth, so I'm going to look at my book, but you now know what program we are doing. And we're going to start, boom, paste the code here. Well, whoops, we want to do the pseudocode first. So pseudocode and then real code in small basic. Make this a little bit bigger so you guys can see. Okay, so you're in your homework file. I'll make that a smaller text, but I'll just increase my size a little bit. Okay. We'll get down to that real code later. Pseudocode. You have to turn this in, so start typing with me. Now, we want to do our basic, well, here we don't have to, but we're going to use the pseudocode things. We're going to do step 1, where we declare our variables. Now here we are going to have to think about local or global variables. This is something, that's new that we need to consider now that we're using modules. You should be typing this along with me. I don't need to make this bold because I do want you to pseudocode with me. Remember, our step 2 is to do some sort of input, but now we are going to do that inside of a module instead of inside main. So we still have a main module, or we always have a main module now. Step 3, we have some sort of calc, but again done inside of a module, not done. And step 4, some sort of output, but in a module. Bing. So let's do step 1. Let's declare variables. So it says a retail company must file a monthly sales tax report listing the total sales for the month and the amount of state and county taxes collected. So we're a company, and in order to figure out how much tax we have to pay, that's based on our monthly sales report. The state tax is 4% and the county tax is 2%. Design a modular program that asks the user to enter total sales for the month. Ooh. Let's stop for a minute. Let's think about our, right there, it says asks the user. So we want to have a variable. So we're going to do real monthly sales as a data, as a variable. And just as a note, that's going to be an input variable because we need to ask the user that. Okay. From this figure, from this amount, the application should calculate and display the following: county sales tax, state sales tax, and total sales tax. So if we need to calculate those are going to be additional variables. County tax, and I'll do it like this where we can just add it on. You could do it separately. State tax and total sales tax. And these are calculated variables. In the pseudocode, represent the county tax as 0.02 and the state tax rate as 0.04 as named constants. Okay. So what that means is we need to create a couple additional variables that are named constants. Now, constant, real, or what it's asking, county tax. I'm going to put these first. If I can type. Tax rate equals 0.02, and then another one, constant, real, state tax rate equals 0.04. Now, constant variables, read about them in the chapter. They mean that you can't change. So the county tax is always 2%, the state tax is always 4%, and that's just a way to better protect your program. Constant variables are usually all caps and separated by underscores since you can't use camel casing. So make sure that you read about constants because we didn't really cover it in the lecture, but that's just an example to better protect your program. So if we vote to change the tax rate to 6%, you only change it here and you don't have to change it 18 million other places. It really is a benefit to programmers to use constant variables when possible. Okay, so these are, what kind of variables are these? Are they input variables? Are they calculated variables? No, because you're not asking them for the tax rate. You're asking them for only monthly sales, and you're not asking them for the state tax rate. And we're not calculating these. But these are used in the process, in the calculation module, to calculate the county tax that the company has to pay. So they're variables that are used in the calculations. Not really input. Definitely not input, I should say, not really. Definitely not input. They're not things we're calculating. They're just things that we need to use in order to make our calculations. So there is our variables that we're going to declare. Now let's leave those there for now because we need to set up our main module and then figure out where we're going to put local variables and where we're going to put global variables and deal with that, because that's an important part of this. We'll just go, okay, we're going to kind of leave that up there. And let's here, right now, okay, so if we put them right there, let's declare main right here. I can make this, it's not a very bright green. There we go. I want to make my pseudocode or my comments green so you can see what is going to be converted into code and what's just our comments and what we're going around. So there's my main steps, and then of course all of these over here are comments as well. So let's do our module main. Now remember, everything centers around main. So inside of here, let me do our end module too at the bottom. Inside of here is all of our any local variables to main and also any calls. So we got our variables up there. I'm just going to separate these so you can see how they're broken apart. So in here, why does my tab go over 18 million spaces? Bang. Over here, you would put any local variables to main, and then you would put any module calls. Okay? Now we don't know what our modules are going to be yet, so we'll just leave that structure set up. Now we said let's talk about our input. So instead of doing the what are your monthly sales, we're going to write a module that gets our monthly sales. So that's going to be one input variable or one input module. So down here we're going to write another module. Actually, I'm going to leave those steps down at the bottom, but so we can see the code all together. But you know the steps 1, 2, 3, 4. Make sure you remember those, and we'll come back to them as we're coding this. So we have our variables. We're not sure what we're going to do with yet. We have main, and then we have our next module. So our next module we're going to do as an input, and we're going to call it get sales module or input sales. We'll figure out what variables we want to pass down, and then we want to end that module. Then we're going to do another module. So in here, what are we doing in here? Stop messing with me, Word. What are we going to do in here? We're going to get the monthly sales. Next step, let's create a module that calculates our county tax. And how about we call this one set county. And we'll figure out what our parameter list is going to be. And what we'll do in here is fix my tab. We will calculate the county tax as the monthly sales equal to, I'm sorry, county tax is monthly sales times that county, that times 2% basically. but we're going to use our constant. So this variable here, the county tax due, basically is the monthly sales times the 2%. Then we'll end that module. Okay. We're going to have the same setup. We're going to have another module that sets the state, and in there we're going to calculate the state tax variable as the monthly sales times state tax rate, and that module. Okay, so now we have step 3 done. We've done our calculations. Oh, have we? Let's read back the program. From this figure, calculate the amount of county tax. Okay, that's what this one does. Calcs the amount of county tax. I'm looking back here, this bullet point, the amount of county tax, the amount of state sales tax, and the amount of the total tax. Well, I forgot that one. So let's go back, and we're almost done with our calculations. Calcs the state tax. And if you wanted, you can put, we'll just go with this way, but you can set total. You can combine these all into one calculation method or module. I just want to show you, and then end the module. I just want to show you how you could break it apart in many different ways. Now this might be maybe too many modules because we only have one calculation in each calculation module, but I want to show you too that you can have more than one module, so you don't have to lump everything with lumpy. You don't have to say all of my calculations for my entire program go into this calculation module. You can, but once that gets, I mean, if you're calculating a whole bunch of things that, like a paycheck, and there's a lot of processes that go on, that can get complicated. So you can also separate it down into each process. So this will calculate the total tax as the state tax plus the county tax. And then you're good to do your fourth step, which we're going to put in a different module called module, this is our output, we'll call this show taxes. And again, we'll figure out what our parameter list is once we figure out what to do with our method. And all I'm going to do in here is, these will be all of our output statements, and we want to do what the program says. It displays the amount of tax collected, the total sales. So we will display, I'm not going to write the perfect code, and you don't have to either. This is just pseudocode. So we'll say display the total sales. I'm sorry, not total sales. We called it monthly sales. Variable. Display the county tax variable. Display the state tax variable. And display the total taxes that were calculated. So that is that. Now you could solve this program using a flowchart as well. We're not going to go through that because there's a lot going on here with just the pseudocode. So remember, everything centers around main. good time to save. Everything centers around main. So before we figure out where we're going to put our variables, let's do our calls. So we know our calls have to happen in this particular order. So we want to first input sales. Then we want to set the county. Then we want to set the state. Then we want to set the total. And then we want to show taxes. Should catch up there for a second. Sure, you're doing a lot of pausing. That's the cool thing about videos. You can pause and go on. So here is main. Everything centers around main. Remember, when I hit run on my program, I'm going to hit this line of code. I'm going to go down here. I'm going to do everything in there and then come back to set the county rate. Then I go down to county, calculate that. I come back to the state call. Then I go back down there and back up to main, back down to my module, back up to main, back down to another module, up to main until I hit end module. Then my program is done. Cool? Yes, Katie, very cool. Pretending that you're responding to me. Input sales. Okay, now let's think. Where do we want to put our variables? Do we want to make them, we can make them all global. Do we have a total tax? Yeah, I think we're right. So right now they're kind of up here in outside of main, which let's say this is the space for the global variables if you're going to use them. Okay, now we don't want to use global variables for the most part because unless they're used in every module, you don't want to use them as global. They take up space, they're always active. So we want to make them local to whatever function they're used in, and show them how to be passed around. Now, before we get into that, because that is an important topic and kind of can be complicated, I want to take a look at the actual assignment that you're going to code and think if we're going to pass them around or not. So you won't notice this pause, but I'm going to pause briefly. Okay, I think what we'll do for the pseudocode is leave the variables here, because in small basic, since you don't really have to declare variables, we're not going to pass them around, although you can pass variables when you call different methods in small basic. But we're not going to for our first assignment, and I don't know with small basic if we have that functionality to really declare things as references and local variables. I do want you to know it's not the norm to make all of your variables global, though. And when you go on with your other programming classes, you'll see that you have to pass by reference when you want to maintain the variable name. So right now, let's leave our pseudocode as this, and then go over to small basic and do the actual code, because we need to learn how to do subroutines in small basic. So save this file, let's do small basic, open this up and save your file as code with me 3 or whatever you like. Okay, code with me, chapter 3. Let's do our basic stuff. Put your name, put the date, put the program description. Guess we don't need it this large. Okay, so we're going to, first step, we're going to declare our variables. Now, when we declared them before, actually, instead of using the word declare, we're going to use the word initialize. Because remember, we know that the variables, what do we have? 4 variables? 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Glad I counted. We have 6 variables, and we know that in small basic you don't have to put them, you don't have to make them a data type, so you don't have to use the real keyword. It doesn't work. But we can give them initial values, so we call that initialization or initializing our variables. So let's do that. So we have these variables here. I'm going to make mine side by side so I can see. So I can see my pseudocode, so I know what my variable names are, and I can kind of follow that on my small basic. Okay, so my first variable I have is county tax rate, and that's a constant, so you don't use the constant keyword, but we set the initial value. And then we have state tax rate, and again, we don't use the constant keyword because it's not something that is available in small basic. And then the other ones that we don't know the values to, monthly sales, we're going to set equal to 0. Because remember, that's an input. Do input. Do in input. And then county tax, we don't know what that is because we're going to calculate that. So that's a calculated. Calc it. State tax, we'll set that equal to 0. Calc that too. Calc it. And total tax. Calc that. So those lines, they just initialize variables. Now remember, you have to spell them right anytime later on that you're using them. Okay, let's do our first module. Our first module is main, according to our pseudocode. But let's see real quick. The problem with small basic is that you don't have to define a main. So we can say, we can comment it out, but what we want to put out here in this open area is just our module calls and the way that they happen. So you don't have to declare main as a sub. They're called subroutines or subs in small basic, and they're called methods in this chapter. But you don't have to declare main as one. It's kind of funky, but that's the way that this particular language works. So what we're going to do here is call all of our methods that we haven't written yet, or all of our modules that we haven't written yet, but we have the calls. So they're done the same way that you did in the pseudocode, except you don't use the call keyword. You just say input sales and then your parentheses. Hold on one second. need to charge my headphones. I want to make sure they were still recording. So let's do all of those. Set county, exactly the way that we spelled them. Set state, set total, and then show taxes. Okay? So this is a call to input state. It'll go down there when we code it, do everything, and then it comes back. I'll show you where you can find some help online for small basic and using modules when we're done here. So now we go down to code our module input sales. So I'm going to go down here. I'm going to write a little bit of pseudocode and say this module gets the monthly sales, and I'm going to call it input sales. See, that's what I'm doing right here. So I will say the keyword sub for subroutine. Let me just check these out real quick. The subroutine statement allows you to groups of things into a single call. So that's your module. I just want to see if there's anything that looks like main. Nope. Method. Alright, so sub, and then we're going to call this one input sales. So remember when remember when we call it, it goes down here, and then we do everything that's in the input sales, and we end this with the keyword end sub. That's how you start it and end it. Now, because you can't pass variables around in small basic, we're not putting parentheses here. We're not going to pass anything around here. You need parentheses when you call it. So main module has your calls, and you have to use the parentheses when you call a module. But when you declare it and define the header down here, no parentheses. And that's just the way that small basic works, because you can't pass variables around. Okay, so what do we want to do in this module? Right here, we want to get the monthly sales. So you just write this like you did before. Write line, or what is our text window? Window dot write, enter monthly sales, and then we want to read that in. So that was our variable called monthly sales equals to text window dot read. Now before we read, we're going to read a number because we know this is a number. So we're going to do read number. That's a little different than the read we used before. But we know it's a number, so because we declared it up here equals 0, so that's a number, right? So let me make this a little bigger so you can see all the text. So there's our sales routine. Now let's save this, and I'm going to run it so we can see if this works right, if it lets us. No, it doesn't, because you know why? We haven't wrote these modules yet. You could comment those out and run it. I won't comment them out. We'll just keep coding and run it at the end. So there's that one. So there's our first subroutine. So let's do another one. We're going to do our next one that sets county. So sub set county. And let's do our end sub right away, so we know that we know where it ends. And we want to calculate the county tax is equal to the monthly sales times the county tax rate. Perfect. Same with the state. Sub set state, and end sub. I always end my subs when I open them up. State tax equals monthly sales times state tax. Okay. Let's do our last one. This is another module, sub, what did we call it? Set total, probably. We're on this one. And this is total tax is equal to county tax, not the tax rate, the county tax. There's difference, plus the state tax. Okay. Our last module was our display. So we're going to make one more called show tax and end that sub. And in here, we'll just simply do all of our displays. So those are right lines. Text window dot right line is the monthly sales, and I'll do the, I can make this bigger now. We know what our pseudocode looks like. You can format this however you want, and see, I'm even doing my syntax wrong. State tax collected. I go between so many different languages that I get the syntax confused sometimes. You'll get there too, trust me. We don't want to display the rates. We know it's 2%, 4%. We just want to display what we calculated and what we input. We are almost done. If you're going, please, gosh, stop talking. I like these videos though. I just think they're such a great way, even if you're in class or if you're taking this online, I just think it's such a great way to be in class and be interactive and do things together before I just say, here's the assignment, good luck, you're on your own. So I know they're long, people, I really understand that. I just think they have really, really great benefit to them. So there's our program. So let's look at the whole scope of it. Okay. Remember, let's add our sample output line here because we don't want to forget that. Now I'm just going to go through my program real quick. You can look at it. I just want to look before I run it to see if I have any compile errors that I can pick out ahead of time. It's like challenging my brain. County tax rate. Okay, I declare my variables, and yes, we're going to make them all global in here because we don't have a choice. Here's my main module. But the funky part is you don't define main, you just call your modules, your other modules. So I call input sales. It goes down here. Make sure these are all spelled the same. Hey, that's cool. You can click on it and it matches it up. So that's a good way to see if it matches up, you spelled it right. Okay, so I'm going to read in monthly sales, and that was what my variable name was up there. Ooh, cool, we got a match there. And then even down here and here. So you see I click when I read it, and then anywhere that variable is, it highlights it. Now the cool thing about that is if you spelled this wrong and you double click here and you go, huh, why isn't this calculating? You know, you can say, oh, because I spelled it wrong. And that will save you syntax problems. Set county, okay. Calculate the county tax. Now make sure you're checking the logic. Make sure you don't put like state tax there. Here's my state. Oh, see, I do have errors. My line 36. See what I mean? I type and I set my total and I put those parentheses there. Take them out. If you put them there, if you were just copying along with me, put them out because, or take them out because set total, I had parentheses. They're not needed in small basic. Okay, now here's another thing I just found an error on, and let me run it, and now see I have a syntax error. Unexpected token on line 40, okay, that's right there. Subroutine show taxes is not defined. That's on line 20, right? I make a call to show taxes. Now I did not intentionally make this syntax error, so that's good. You can see, yes, I make these mistakes too. But line 20, I call it show taxes, but when I declared it down here, I called it show tax. And then I put parentheses, which is another problem. So I need to fix that. And you see when I click on show taxes, I don't get anything else highlighted, so that was another indicator. So I'm going to delete those parentheses and fix the name of that subroutine. Save it, run it, and see what we get. So take yours too. Make sure you're checking, you know, what's going on. So here, initialize variables, call our modules, make our module calls, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 modules. One that gets our sales, one that sets the county tax, one that sets the state tax, one that sets the total tax, and one that shows the taxes. Run it, run this program. Let's make it something readable. Okay, my company made $15,000, $359, $15,359 last month in sales. So I owe $614 in state taxes and $307 in county taxes, and my total taxes were $921. Because I need to make sure my program's calculating right, I always do this. 359 times 0.02, 307.18. Yep, that's my county tax. Okay, cool. 15,359 times 0.04, 614. Okay, awesome. So that is this code with me. So I'm going to mark, highlight, click here, edit, copy, save that, and paste my sample code down here, remembering to comment it out. You don't need to include this line if you just want to delete it. It might be easier just to comment it. So now I have some sample output. I have a program that uses modules. I've initialized variables. I am good to go. Take this. Bam. Go back to my assignment, my answers that I have. I'm going to go down here to where you put your real code and paste it. Save, upload that file to Blackboard, and you're good to go. Thank you. I hope you enjoy this, and Chapter 4 is coming up next, and that's on decisions, so that'll be fun as well. Good luck with the assignment. I'll make a short video after this in just a second to help you get started on that. Have a great one.